How y'all doing, YouTube? It's been a little bit over a month. Hope y'all are doing well. I know right now, if you've been paying attention to the news and life, it's not as easy. It's never really been easy, but it seems like it's about to get a little bit harder. So if you are doing well, things are good with you. I'm glad for you. I want to say thank you first off. I want to say I haven't been keeping track of how many videos I posted. I've just been kind of posting. And I did take a month off. You know, life had been just dealing with my own shit. And when I came back and checked on it, I seen I had some views for the first time. And actually like a couple hundred. So that surprised me. And I'm appreciative. I actually had comments too. So to all them folks who watched my video, to the one subscriber I got, and to the people that commented, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm still new to this journey. And it's not my main hustle. You know what I'm saying? And I'm still, learning and narrowing out the kinks of where I want to take it. Even though it's mainly like a vlog and me just talking about current events, my thoughts on the current events, and eventually finding out where I want to evolve this and later take it. And that depends on, how everything progresses. But anyway, again, thank you. I appreciate y'all. And if you do like what I am creating, what I'm talking about, even if you hate it, I guess, subscribe, comment, whatever. I'm here to grow and learn and, maybe find a community of like-minded individuals that I can click up with and do something with. And that's really the main goal. But anyway, so we on the road today, heading to the gym, about to get this workout in, something light, about to do some cardio, a little bit of core. But what are we talking about? I want to touch on a few things, and it's kind of scattered. I've been thinking about it a lot. I need to start writing things down and kind of outlining a little bit better for myself and thoughts when I make these videos, because let's be honest, it's pretty much just been me talking and rambling. And I said that a lot, and I'll probably keep saying that until I get it organized, and it's not like that. So just bear with me, and I appreciate those who are patient. If y'all are following and continue to watch me, thank you. But yeah, here we are. What are we talking about? So segregation is a thing that seems to be coming back, at least on a federal level. What I do see happening is, if there is not enough pushback, if there's not enough backlash about it, it'll most likely trickle into everyday life. On some level, for some people, more so than others, depending on where you live in the United States. Because at the end of the day, even though there are a lot of racist people here and a lot of them are in power, there are a lot of non-racist people here, and they understand the benefit of diversity and people of other races and creeds and backgrounds coming together for a common goal and not suppressing it. So, yeah. But what I really want to talk about and touch on that was I want to say side effects and outcomes that I haven't heard too many people talk about. I've heard, I see, at least from black folks. So what I've seen so far is like, I was like, hell yeah, we want to be away. And I understand that. I was like, man, after that election, a large part of myself was like, bro, I kind of want to distance myself. And not out of hate. It was more like, why would I want to be around people who don't want me around? And that's really how it is. I was like, bro, I'm the type of person, if you don't want me there, and if I'm not wanted, why would I want to be there? But the reality is, I was born and raised in the United States. Yes, my family is from the Caribbean, but they are naturalized citizens. They got their citizenship and did all that other stuff. So, it's not like there's another country that I could just dip off to. And I'm being honest, I like the Caribbean a lot, but it's kind of hot right now. And it's kind of hot right now, honestly, because of the influence of the United States and what it does economically around the world and to its allies and colonies and all that shit. But that's a whole other story for another video. But again, back to unforeseen consequences. And what I mean by that is, it's easy to kind of get lost in the reactionary nature of what's going on in the world. I think that's a tactic and a strategy of those people in power right now. They want to push so much stuff out to kind of confuse and overwhelm, and it is working to an extent. I think black people are very good because we've suffered for so long, and we've had to deal with the looming threat of racism and white supremacy over our heads pretty much our whole lives as Americans here, even when we were doing better, never mind when things were worse. That when these kind of things come along, we have a very good way of just being like, hey, whatever, bro, we're gonna deal with it anyway, because we actually have been dealing with it like that anyway. But I think, and maybe people are thinking about it, and maybe people are in the same space as me. I'm just saying, from my end, personally, I have not seen too many people talk about it like that. And what I mean is, segregation this time around, if it actually does go full back in the swing, is not going to be for black people or white people what they really think it is. And what I mean by that is, most Americans don't pay attention to what's going on around the world with what America does. We don't really pay attention to it because, one, it doesn't really affect our daily lives as much as we think it does. Or I should say, we don't feel the effects of it on our daily lives as much as it actually affects us. And if you're paying attention or look at the history of how America has treated and done Africa, what France has done in Africa, especially like the Sahel, what Trump and all these people are talking about now with doing with people in Palestine and in Gaza. If you've been paying attention to that at all, and I don't want to say, because it's not like because let's be honest, I'm just a regular dude, blue collar worker. I like to look up things, not just watch videos, but I'll read articles and look things up. I kind of have an inquisitive nature, and I'll even admit it myself. Sometimes I can be a little conspiratorial, but I never let it go too far because I realize, hey man, like, you don't know till you know. But there's a trend of things that I've been noticing about what's happening in the world, and what that is what's going on over in Palestine. They want that land. They don't want them people, unless they can use them. And what I've been paying attention to, a lot of these experts, the military experts, the war experts, what they've been talking about is looking at this war overseas as a learning ground. And the way they present it is like, this is new, but it's not new. This is what America's been doing from day one. They go out into the world and they will try some shit and test it out on other folks. And if it works, then they'll bring it back to America and bring it in here. And what we're going to see, in my belief, I don't want to say this is fact. All I'm saying is, mark my words, and if I'm wrong, I guess I'm eating my hat. I don't believe that I'm going to be wrong, but time will tell. And what I think is going on is, even though China may be the lesser of two evils, there's no denying that they kind of run a little bit of a dictatorship. Yeah, they have a lot of wealth. Their GDP is up. They are the superpower of manufacturing like no one else in the world. And arguably, that is America's fault, even though China has to take some fault in that too. And mainly America's greed. We realize we got to pay Americans more. China's like, pay us less. We don't care about treating our people a certain way. And it was beneficial to both governing bodies. But the long-term effects of that is China's becoming the economic superpower, and they will be. Now, where am I going with this? It is not, everyone's like, oh, it's chaos, and what's the final goal of everything? And I'm like, well, think about it. Or at least, this is my thoughts on it. You take away people's rights. You prevent them from being discriminated. You want to go back to a time through Project 2025 and other documents of where whites were on the top for just the sake of being whites and everybody else was beneath them. You want blacks back into slavery. But this ain't going to be, 1940s, 50s Jim Crow or pre-1900s slavery. We live in a world of technology, of surveillance. I mean, look at the device I'm using now, a cell phone. It can track everywhere I go. I mean, thankfully right now I live a life where there's really nothing to hide. I've never lived a life to hide. But by the nature of my skin tone and the way that I talk and speak, that can change very rapidly. summer's coming, and tensions get high. Over the winter, Trump did a lot of things to put people's minds in a stressful place. But it's been cold, and people ain't got a lot of money, and they staying indoors. Some areas probably gonna be cool. Other areas, watch yourselves. And what I'm saying is, every dictatorship or authoritarian regime goes to this process where they start rounding people up and putting them into camps. Now, in America's case, they've been watching the world do this for a long time, and because of the release of documents, we found out they've been funding this shit. And I want to say we because I'm American. Unfortunately, I don't support this shit, but that's what America's been doing, and they've been funding it and supporting it. Why? Because they want to know what they can get away with. We live in a world of information and data, and these people have been collecting that data and using it to create a plan and a system that is going to allow them to maintain their power as long as possible. I think what we're seeing is these people are banking on an allyship with Russia and a fight for China. And I think it's stupid because I don't think Russia wants us as allies at all. I think Russia is using this as a way to destroy us. And Russia's more like going to be friends or make new enemies with China. And the reason I say this is because Russia's always been cool with China. And even now, they're not so uncool with China. Yeah, there's talks and shit like that because, China wants to denounce certain things that Russia's doing. And, every country does that. So you can't really get caught up in that sense that that's a division, because here's the thing. Every major power in the world does some shitty shit around the world, and every other major power will talk shit about it, even though they're all doing dirt. It's just that America was so dominant for so long. China and Russia allied up, and I think they still are. The whole thing about Trump being a Russian plant, I don't know enough about that to say that. I think that Trump is a guy who wants to be a dictator. We've given him the reins and the keys to the castle, and he's going to execute that. And he's going to cozy up to other dictators because he likes how they run things, right? Doesn't mean that he wants to, it's not so much he wants to be best friends with them because of that. It's he likes the lifestyle of a dictator. He likes that feeling of superiority, untouchableness, that feeling of power, like I control all these lives, right? And he closes up to it because he wants to glean what he can. And I think that's what we're watching right now. America's trying to learn whatever works from these dictators, what has worked, the things that have kept them in power, and then trying to twist it to an American way and perfect it. Because racism doesn't go away, it evolves. The only way it goes away is that, the other side, which I wouldn't know, anti-racism, has to evolve faster and stronger than how racism and systemic racism evolves. That's the only way to beat it. And that's through proper education and knowledge and people understanding what things really mean. But how better do you control a country and a population if you take away their ability to learn? You take away their ability to keep themselves healthy and earn money. Then they're completely dependent on the system. We talk about freedom. But you will not have a free country, white, black, or indifferent, if all your power is consolidated by one person who wants to be a dictator. And I said this kind of in like one of my first videos. I was like, what do you think happens once he rounds up all the Mexicans and the Latinos and all the Muslims and all the immigrants and all the black folks and either deports us, kills us, or enslaves us? Do you think that white people are going to be living the high life after that? Do you think wealthy people are just going to be like, we're just going to give you money? They weren't giving you money now. They've just been telling you something. And if you think this is going to make it better, no. I was like, more often what's going to happen if they are fully successful is, if you're not white, you're either going to be dead, deported, or a slave to some degree, or whatever that's going to look like in a digital age. And that the lesser white folks will be the gatekeepers. But you will be no better than the people you're housing. You don't understand. everybody's still gonna be in the prison. Just somebody gonna be watching some prisoners. You may make a little bit more money. You may not be enslaved, but guess what? Your life ain't gonna be much better. You still gonna be right there in the slop, with the illusion of being better off because you're not. You got someone to look down on, and that's been the case since day one. And what I'm saying is, for black folks, it ain't gonna be all kumbaya unless we organize now. Because they're not going to segregate us fully and be like, we just gonna leave you alone, y'all go live y'all lives. America is fully backed and backing Israel. And Israel is not a two-party state. If that was the case, there wouldn't be a war right now. People wouldn't be getting bombed. There wouldn't be no ceasefire deals that are getting broken and all this other stuff, because there would just be two states, a Palestinian state and an Israeli state, and people would just be moving on. But we don't have that. And what you don't realize is, if you haven't done your research, is America has been learning about how to control a group of people, how to monitor, control, and oppress a group of people in a way that they can get away with it. That's what Israel's been doing this whole time. I'm not saying that Hamas or Palestine is perfect. I'm distinguishing between governing bodies and people. I'm not talking Israel, its people. I'm talking Israel, its government. Israel, its military. Just makes it clear. And I'm not talking Palestine as people. I'm talking Palestine or Hamas as government. I want to make a clear distinction between peoples and their governing bodies. Because here's the thing. Even in America, where, mostly white folks voted for Trump, there's a whole group of folks here who didn't. And I want to make that distinction clear. I'm not talking about Israel and it's everything there. I'm talking about Israel's governing body. And they're very good at this. In the world of everything's digital, in the world where you can push ideas, with the click of a button and show people what you want them to see, especially when we're getting into AI. I was like, we're walking into a world that is going to be very dangerous in a way that I don't think many people really understand. Especially for black folks. Because, I'm not saying we are dumb, because we are not. We're super intelligent people. But we're coming up on a system that isn't just going to be dudes in white hoods and sheets running around. We're about to be in a situation that the people that are for democracy and for a government that serves its people, if they are unable to win that fight, and if the common man, like man and woman I should say, like you and me and every other person, black, brown, and in between, black, white, and in between, that actually cares about freedom and democracy, doesn't do something and not just speak up, but actually, when it comes time to vote the right way and spend your money in the right way where you can, that these people are going to unleash something that most people aren't prepared for. And why I'm saying that is because the last few wars that America has been in have been fighting insurgency type fights. We are an overwhelming force with a lot of money for technology, fighting people who don't have that same level of infrastructure to combat what we throw at us. And for the most part, we've been winning only in small pockets. But we pulled out, and the Taliban are in power. And the Taliban did not have half the military or the technology or the weapons that Russia and China combined have. Not even close. Not even a quarter of it. And they were able to hold out long enough in a war of attrition that made America have to pull up. So if you think that what we're going into is going to be some clean fight and something quick, you're wrong. The enemy is just as strong as America. And America's in a place where it's making enemies out of everyone and trying to suppress half its country. It's going to be ruthless and brutal. And I'm not trying to fearmonger, but this is the reality. Right? This isn't going to be, okay, back in the day, we're in the 40s and 50s, civil rights movement, where it was just, corrupt cops and all that other stuff. What I see happening, and I could be wrong, and I'll say that because it's a very grim outlook if it happens, but I think the potential for that is very near, is that we're not just going to have to deal with, fascism and racism. we're potentially going to have to deal with a war happening on top of that. And what that looks like may not be good for black folks in America, especially if we're in a position where we're already being corralled and enslaved, because what most likely will happen is if we go into a full-blown type of war like that, and the nuke thing is there, but I think that the only one of the three that I'm worried about really dropping a nuke is Putin, because if the rumors are true about this man on his way out because of cancer, he ain't got nothing to lose. Fuck it, why not? Trump likes living a little too much to want to use one unless he knows he can get away with it. And in a world like this, it's hard to get away with dropping a nuke. So I don't think necessarily that he will use one. And because China historically has not been out there bombing the shit out of everywhere, I'm not saying that they're perfect, but let's just look at the facts. They don't have as many military bases around the world, and they don't have anything out there where they're bombing everyone else. If anything, they have more of a bad reputation about how they treat their own than about how they treat the rest of the world. Now, that could be a whole nother conversation in time, if and when China becomes the most dominant political party and nation in the world, which I think is inevitable at this point, and how they deal with the rest of the world. But what they're showing so far is they're definitely taking less of a sledgehammer to the rest of the world for their own power than America has done in the past. And that's what I'm saying. Segregation right now is not so much, it's going to be bad, not so much for what I think some people may think. I mean, oh, we're not going to be around white people no more. No. It could be bad because, one, we possibly may be fighting on more than one front. As in, we're going to have to fight white supremacy, and then people who may not have anything against us personally as black folks in this country, but because it's war, and because it's America, they're going to go after us. Because here's the thing, what we don't realize is America has been good at just bombing indiscriminately, bro. Like, we go places and we just drop bombs. We level places, and we funded leveling places. If you haven't been watching what's going on in Gaza, even though it hasn't been us doing it, we've definitely been funding and aiding Israel in doing this. The world doesn't forget that. So everyone out here, and I say this especially say if you're a white person who sees this and you lean that way, if you think because you're hoarding a lot of guns and stockpiling and you're like part of some militia group that's far right, you think you're going to be out here. I was like, you know what, you may get away with so much in America because you got the government backing you. But the Chinese and Russians don't give a damn about that shit, bro. They're going to come out here and bomb the hell out of everybody if they can. And if you haven't been paying attention at all, that's kind of the speciality in warfare, is building long-range missiles and bombs, because they don't have the infrastructure to be sending troops everywhere like America does. And because of the way things are going right now, if we go into full-scale war and we have segregation and it goes into full segregation, like I know they want to push it, it's going to be bad all the way around for black folks. Yes, we will be more together and forced to cooperate, which is the silver lining and the good thing. But we literally will be fighting a war on two fronts. And that's not a good thing. Because if y'all haven't been paying attention, there is no black political party. We don't have a military. Yes, there are guns out there. We have weapons. And yeah, we have military personnel, especially now that they've been fired. I hope that some of these military personnel go, okay, now's our time to really get into our communities and train our people up and educate our people and get ourselves prepared for what's to come. That's my honest hope for any trained black military or ex-military or anyone that's in our government who's been let go because they color their skin because of this anti-DEI shit, and actually knows what is going on and has the wherewithal and the knowledge that they can come out here and help educate black folks and get us on the right track to at least defend ourselves properly against what is possibly to come. And the reason I say that is because 2025 summer is rapidly approaching. And when shit usually hits the fan is in the spring and the summertime. Wars usually take off in the spring, sometimes in the winter, but most of they take off when things get warm, because it's easier to send troops into battle when they ain't dying of freezing in the cold, right? So if war does take off, it very possibly can take off in the summertime like 2025, and it may not. A lot of people predicting 2030. Nobody really, I don't think anyone truly knows, because we are not in the heads of these people. The only reason I'm saying worry about 2025 is, and it's also not even just about that. It's also because just this past week, the desegregation of federal things. Summertime's coming up. White supremacists are feeling more entitled and more empowered than ever before. And the summertime, when people get hot, they get out there, they start drinking, they start doing things. One thing leads to another, and a fight breaks out, and things can go sideways really quick. And look, we as black folks, we like to party. We like to, if you Caribbean, you like to lom, you like, the kickback, whatever you want to call it. We like to hang out and get together and chill. And the summertime, we out there. We in the streets, we outside. Listen, and I'm not telling people to stay inside. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that. I ain't trying to tell you live your life in fear. I'm not trying to say isolate yourself from the world. What I am saying is that we're in a different time now. And more so than that. And I understand some parts of the United States, they've kind of already been living this the whole time. So they already in the mental state like, bro, this is what it is. We gonna be good. But everywhere is not like that. So my message is for those black communities or the black people who aren't in those places where they've been living like that, and they are mainly accustomed to dealing with shit like this on a regular basis. Because depending on where you live, you may have never dealt with it. Depending where you live, it may be some minor shit. It's on the other side of town or in the other city. Over here, it's kind of hectic. You may deal with a little bit, but it'll never escalate into full-on violence. And the reason I say this is because MAGA folks want violence. I won't say necessarily all of them, but there's a lot of them out there who are very outspoken and very, very, very headstrong and ready to go into a full-scale war. There are a lot of them out there that are like, man, I'm ready to go. They want to fight. And I think because what they think that this is just going to be a roll thing or like a rollover thing, and I don't think that. I think a lot of black folks will fight back. I think they don't realize how many black folks are strapped as they are, but most of these MAGA folks will be backed by our government and our military. And I see that, and a lot of people have been saying this, and like I said, I'm not in Trump's mind, but following everything this man's been doing, it would lead you to believe that he wants to incite black folks into violence so that he can incite martial law and start running things down. Now, I don't really talk to white folks about this because the reality is it probably won't affect white folks immediately like it will affect black folks. Unless you're like one of the white people, if you're in an interracial relationship and you've got mixed kids, it's gonna get kind of crazy for y'all, depending on where y'all live. If it goes that way. It might not, we'll see. But what I'm trying to say is segregation right now is a double-edged sword. Keep your mind and your wits about you, especially when this summer and spring come around. There are going to be people out there who are going to be fully empowered to antagonize and berate you because of the color of your skin, because of what's going on in the government and the world today. And they want to use that as a way to usher in that martial law and start coming after folks. Now, will it play out like that? Does it have to? No. But what I would say is, it is on us to protect ourselves as individuals and as a group. And the best way to do that is to have your mind primed for what can happen, not so that you're in panic mode and do some crazy shit, but just to be like, hey, there are people out there who are going to want to incite this. And your best way to deal with those folks is not so much to not defend yourself. I think if you got to defend yourself, and be aware of where that will be applicable and that you can know your rights in your city, what that means and what that looks like. But also that being mindful that a lot of shit you can avoid by just using your brain and being like, I don't need to be over there. And the reason I say this is, listen, bro, I'm a black dude, and I know lots of brothers be like white girls. And I don't want to insult sisters because, yes, there is a very big online movement of brothers that are like, we only fuck with white women. And I don't only fuck with white women. I've dated every race of women out there. I don't discriminate, and it's not because I don't like sisters. It's just because if you knew me, you knew my family, you will see that we range all over the place. Yes, we are mainly black, but if you look at my oldest brother to me, he's lighter than some white folks. We have Asian, we have Latino, and we have black. We have a mix of everybody in our family. Our family is very multicultural by nature. Um, and a lot of people will assume, okay, well, you just don't like black women. No, I've been raised around mostly black folks, but I've been raised around everybody to some degree. So I don't really have that in me to discriminate. If I see a beautiful woman and there's a chemistry, then we cool. Beyond the point, me explaining myself, it really wasn't necessary. I was going off on a tangent. What I'm trying to say is, and this isn't to spread hate and racism, but there is historical precedent and very well documented historical precedent for brothers getting fucked up for talking to or being allegedly talking to or interested in certain white women. And the reason I'm saying this is because yesterday it wasn't an altercation, but I had a weird little incident, and it didn't go anywhere, but it put it in my mind that I should be aware of what's going around me a little bit more. And I figured, you know what, I will let other brothers and sisters know about it too. So I go to the gym all the time. I'm not gonna bring out the gym because I don't think they need that spotlight like that, and I don't want to bring any negative to people that just want to work out and do their thing. Because I don't think the company's racist. I don't think most of the patrons of that gym are racist. I don't want to give that. All I'm saying is this: I was at this gym last night, one of my business working out, and there was a female on the elliptical. She looked familiar, but I didn't know who it was. I glanced over a couple times, and I'm like, why does she look familiar? Nothing beyond that. White girl, nothing beyond that. It wasn't like I was trying to holler at her, because honestly, I ain't trying to holler at nobody in the gym. I ain't trying to date nobody in that gym, nothing. But I didn't know until afterwards, this dude, white dude, was giving me the stink out real hard for a long time. And giving me that eye like, what's up? You know the vibe of someone that just can't keep their eyes off me, and they give you that daggers look. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yo, bro, what's up with this dude? Now while I'm in the gym, after a time I see, okay, he's talking to this girl, they're in relationships. I'm like, oh, I see what it is. And I was like, things start out subtle. You know what I'm saying? Like, all this shit starts subtle. I live in the South. I live in Florida. I live in a rural area of Florida. It's not like super, super rural, but it's rural enough that you know what I mean by saying rural. And, I've already started to see some of the, couple of neighbors have seen some people putting up, never mind the Trump flag, but like the KKK style flags, the different nominations of like white supremacist groups out there. I've seen a couple neighborhoods where those, I've driven down some streets where I've seen it. And that's usually where it starts. They feel emboldened, they're on the internet, and the internet's where it starts, because on the internet you can pretty much say whatever you want to say, and you just gotta worry about getting blocked or some shit, or doxxed. And if you're in the echo chamber, then you ain't gotta worry about shit. You can spew whatever you want and get away with it. But now that they feel more emboldened, the flags start coming out, you start getting the weird looks and all this other shit. I am a 6'2", 320-pound dude. I am heavy, but I'm also very athletic, and I'm very big. I can, I keep talking about it in my videos. I'm gonna show workout videos, and I plan to, if things work out for me like that. I do a lot of calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups. I can squat, deadlift, all that. I can't start right now. I had a back thing, but I can do relatively most things. I'm still very active. I do a lot. I do jump rope, I run, I do everything. I'm just a big dude, but I'm very physically active. And I understand by the nature of it and my physique, I have an imposing physique. I'm very broad-shouldered. Like I said, 6'2", 320 pounds. I look imposing. It don't take much for me to be in a place, and if I'm not smiling or giving off an energy of like, hey, everybody, that I can make people who are smaller than me or already have some type of preconceived notion about a person that looks like me very intimidated. Not so that I gotta go on walking on eggshells, but it's good to be mindful of the situation you're in, and the environment you're in, and what people are doing. And the reason I learned that is because I did security for a very long time, and it allowed me to not only keep myself safe, but keep a lot of other people safe. So I'm very cognizant of watching people's body language, their behavior, and what they do, not just in relation to me, but other people in the area. And it didn't go any, and what I'm saying, okay, so back to the story, it didn't go anywhere beyond that, but it made me think. I was like, ain't nobody really give me no stink out like that before, and not in a long time. You know what I'm saying? No one's really, and it's funny because it wasn't like I was on one side of the gym, and she wasn't all the way on the other side of the gym. It was more like, 20, 30 feet on a Stairmaster. So it's literally like I'm doing a leg machine, and then like she's in my line of sight, and it's high up, so I could see her. Wasn't looking at her butt because she was facing me. Head was down. She looked kind of funny in the position she was, but it wasn't like I was checking her out physically, because if you saw the position she was, you wasn't seeing nothing. She just looked familiar. And I couldn't figure it out. And I wasn't going to approach her because I was like, I might not know this person, and I ain't trying to do that. But anyway, long story short, it's the subtle things that can lead into something if you don't pay attention, right? We all seen all the videos or news articles, brothers end up disappearing, people end up disappearing, people turn up missing, or, no one goes charged. And you wonder, how does that happen? Well, it starts out small and subtle. It could be a microaggression or a perceived microaggression that can lead someone to do certain things if they're already primed to think about a person and a thing in a certain way, right? And if you are unaware of those things, it can be very easy for you to get compromised and caught up. It may not be a cost to your life. It could be legal problems and loss of finances and all kinds of other shit that you just don't want to deal with if you're not aware and cognizant of the people that you're dealing with and what you got to do. And I'm not saying all white people are like this. It literally was this dude's body language and everything he was giving off to me. So he gave me the stink eye. I just looked at him. I was like, yo, what up? Now, thankfully, with the look I gave him, I was like, what up, homie? Like, I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. And I didn't aggress because we were far away. I didn't step in his face. I ain't trying to say all that. It was just like, you give me aware to look, I'm going to look at you and give you the nod to be like, is there something here? And, he's not as big as me. And I don't want anyone to think I'm a bully. And I don't use my size to intimidate because, listen, I did MMA for a while. I fought. I've done security for a while. I am not bulletproof. No matter how big you are, a gun is going to stop anybody. Never mind that. Because I've done MMA, I have fought people smaller than me who are very well more skilled than me and have humbled me to realize your size and everything. Even though I'm athletic and as strong as I am, I'm still an older gentleman, and I don't like going out there and picking fights with people. First of all, because I've done MMA and I've done security. I've seen it go bad way too many times. I have too much background in this to be like, I got out here and I need to prove shit to people and be a bully. But it doesn't take away the fact that I know to be aware of my situations and my surroundings and pay attention to what people are doing, because by the nature of it, it could come back on me. Especially because a lot of times, because of where I live, when I'm in the gym, I'm usually, if not the only black person in that gym, one of a few at the time. There are a lot of people that do come there, but we all come at the same time. And because of where I come to schedule, it just happens to be that way. So I'm very cognizant of that as other people. And what I'm trying to say is, for men and women, I don't know if anybody saw it. There was a video that came out a couple months ago. A black girl at a gas station, older gentleman, black dude was pissed off and kind of threatening her and aggression her, pulled out a gun, put it in her face, and people were videotaping it. And I was like, look, it starts out subtly with microaggressions. They may give you funny looks, they may say funny things, they may do weird shit around you and make jokes. That shit is all excusable, but it's all going somewhere. And it doesn't mean you react in kind, because I don't think that's what's going to do. And I'm not saying be afraid, I'm saying be wise and be smart. Fight, pick your battles, know where you are, and know if you're in a situation where you need to either move or defend yourself, right? And be cognizant, because the summer is coming. It's going to be hot as fuck. People are going to want to go out here and blow off steam with everything that's going on. So drinking and partying is going to go up this summer. Even though money going to be tight, I guarantee you, people going to be out here on the streets doing more partying and more drinking and more liming because they're looking for outlets for the stress and the aggression they have. And when people are pissed off and already primed for action in their minds, it leads to violence more often than not. And I guess all this is what I'm trying to bring around to you. Is like, it's not a coincidence this all came at these times, knowing what's coming in. These people are versed in the psyche of how people think, how people act, and what it takes to push buttons. This is not as much as the media wants to push it as like this guy is crazy or stupid, he may be crazy. He is not stupid. And there are a lot of intelligent people working behind him who want to push this agenda and who understand the logic and the psychology and everything it needs to take to push people to do the shit they want them to do to get the results that they want them to get. Now, there's going to be pushback because everybody ain't dumb. But the everyday person out on the street is going to be living like the everyday person out on the street, right? So what I'm trying to say is just be mindful of that. Be aware that it's going to get hot. The MAGA folks want violence. I know some of the people on the left want violence. Hey, take your life into your own hands if you want to. But be advised that what goes on now can very easily affect everyone around you. And what I'm saying is, for black and white folks, don't let your pride get you into a situation that causes you to lose your life or the lives of your loved ones to be lost or affected negatively because you can't control your emotions and you got caught up and you out here doing the crazy shit. If there ever was a risk of some crazy shit really popping off in the summertime, it's this year, right? And I say that because I really don't want to see people dying. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of racist people out in the world, and I can't speak for them. I'm not here to protect them. But I know there's a lot of people like me out there who are hardworking people who want to live their lives, who don't want beef. They just want to live, you know? But if you don't have the wherewithal and understand that these people are going to try to push your buttons, and it's very easy to lose your temper and do some crazy shit, and it can lead bad for you or the people you care about. And I just want to stress that. And that's how I was saying the thing about segregation, because I was like, look, this is already going to be a looming effect on your head. If people think it doesn't affect them negatively, it does. Yes, the media portrays people like we slamming and rejoicing, but that's a natural reaction to being attacked, is to show joy, because it will frustrate the person trying to frustrate you. But it doesn't mean that on the inside you're not feeling other things. And these people know this. And some people are going to be on heightened alert, you know, and understandably you should be, but do not lose your wits. Do not let your emotions get the better of you into making decisions that could lead to the loss of your life and theirs. And I'm not saying be a coward and all this other shit. No, you can be a brave person, but the line between bravery and stupidity can be very thin if you're not thinking, right? There are a lot of brave, dumb, dead people in the world, or that used to be in the world. You know what I'm saying? They are super brave, but they're dumb as bricks, which is why they die early. And there are a lot of people out there who are overly aggressive because of their own insecurities and their own fears, and it leads them to act in ways that they didn't need to go down, right? Because they're so afraid, or they're so stressed out, and they're so scared. And I get it, bro. Money may be tight, bills and all this shit, and I'm gonna say, bro, I'm not wealthy. I'm not a super wealthy person. I'm not gonna sit here and go, oh yeah, I got all this bread and all this shit. I'm like, I'm don't. I'm in the box with everybody else. I'm living every day, trying to scrounge and get to this money and figure out a way to live a better life, even now with it being even harder. I'm not balling. So it's not like, oh, I'm talking from a place of privilege where I can be like, I can up and leave. I'm talking from a place of experience. You know what I'm saying? I've never been wealthy. My father was wealthy later on in life when I was a very young child. So there was a time where I lived a relatively good or a better lifestyle, but we were never super, super rich, and I'm not now. You know, so, and I'm not ashamed of that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it for sympathy. I'm just saying, look, I'm a person like everybody else. I'm coming from my own personal experience of someone who has a background of security, who has an inquisitive mind, who understands how to read people's language, how body language, understand what people are doing, and just seeing a trend of things that other people may be seeing, but I don't see too many people talking about, right? Everybody talking about what you see on the media, and it's not even a whole bunch of people. It's like the same group of people that are talking a positive image, which leads me to believe that this is an agenda being pushed on black folks. It doesn't really represent what we really feel, is what they want us to feel about it. And because I feel mixed about it, I feel like it could be a good thing in the sense that like black people can be in a place where they have to interact with each other to grow instead of pushing each other away to grow, which would be good overall for black folks. But the other side of that is, as much as we're going to be forced to work with each other,
the people that want to segregate us are going to be 100% working overtime to keep us divided in our segregation, and also keep us oppressed and suppressed in our segregation. And more so than ever before, because of the technology that we now live in, the world that we live in, the digital age, right? The people that are going to see this video are using a phone just like me. They're watching YouTube just like me, right? So you're going to be exposed to ideas and things in the news. And it doesn't take much to create trauma. You can show people things and tell people things that are factual, and it will create trauma. It'll keep you oppressed, that prison of the mind. It can keep you in a state of, I'm so stressed out, I don't know how to act right now. And when things get hot and money is even more tight, because things are only going to get more expensive as time goes on, how fast that happens, I don't know. But I'm saying, just be prepared for this summer. Live your life, enjoy your life. If you want to go out and do your thing. But be mindful, more so now than ever before, that there are people out there who are actively looking to harm you. And they ain't just black folks or your enemies and all this shit. Because I get it, in some parts of areas, black folks like, all these black people trying to come at me and all this other shit and all this other shit. I get it. But right now, there's a greater enemy than just black folks or individual people having beefs that we could solve if people just hollow out their pride and come to have conversations with each other and let go of the dumb shit. And we realize that, we can all grow. And I can't speak to everyone. I don't know everyone's situation. That's just my overall take on it. I don't know. I don't want to say that's exactly what it is for everyone, but I'm pretty sure more often than not, a lot of disputes interpersonally with black folks has to do a lot with pride and ego, because we are very powerful, egotistical people, because we've suffered and made it through so much. Not because we are entitled, but because, listen, we have had to struggle for everything. So being successful, especially at the heights we've gotten to in the year of 2025, in this century of technology, of course it's going to come with a little bit of arrogance and ego and pride, especially because all of us ain't living good. Some people, even myself, I may be, out here trying to get this bread, but I'm not living in the hood. I'm still working like a 9 to 5 person. I'm just not out gang banging and slinging and shit. It don't make me better or less than a person in the hood. It just means I'm just not in that environment. That's all it means. But at the end of the day, the finances are still the same. We still got to go out here and get this bread. I'm not wealthy. I'm not balling. So it also means that, there's overall things that need to be said or need to be acknowledged. That, hey, there's it's not new, but they coming at us in a different way. So just be mindful, right? I don't want to, I know it's inevitable that there are going to be news stories that are going to come out for the rest of this year of, black people getting assaulted or murdered or killed. And I don't like any of it. And I'm not trying to endorse that. But I would like to, if I cannot outright or encourage outright elimination of that, because one, we stop killing each other because there's a bigger enemy to be fighting, that I can at least put it on some people that may watch this video that, hey, just keep your wits about you. Not just for your ops, whatever. There's a worse op out there. And just to be mindful. You can live your life, you can be careful, but use your head. If you know this is a place where some bullshit can easily go down, is it really worth going there for the party? And to the brothers that only date white girls, I'm not going to tell you not to date who you want to date. I date who I want to date. But I also date who I want to date knowing the history. Understanding that I put myself at risk every time I date a white girl, because I don't necessarily know what she's about. It doesn't mean all white women are racist. I'm not saying that. But you don't know until you know. That's just a fact. So there's always a risk there. And we've seen it. There was just an article the other day of a brother getting killed by his white girlfriend. And I'm just saying this to be like, just be mindful. I'm not saying don't date white people. I'm not saying hate white women. Pause. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is you are stupid and negligent if you're not cognizant of the possible threats that can come to you, especially in the climate we live in now. Treat people with respect. Treat people kindly. And treat people in the way that you want to be treated. No matter where they come from or whoever. If they show their ass on you, deal with that accordingly. Either walk away, and if you got to defend yourself, defend yourself. Right? Whatever that needs to be, do that. But just be cognizant of things are different. And you can't operate under the same ways you have been operating when the rules have changed and expect to succeed and not incur ire or problems. And that's what I want to go with that. And I guess that's what I was talking about with the whole, like, segregation to me was like, what I see happening, all these are beacons to me to pay more attention and not to act reckless, because I don't. I'm honestly a really calm person. I call it the quiet storm, not because I'm some bully or some badass. It's just more like I can feel a million things inside, and I don't allow myself to go out there and just act a fool on it. I just won't. Because I realized when I was younger and I did that, it just made more problems for me. You know what I'm saying? It's why I got into MMA and mixed martial arts as a young kid. Partly because I was tired of being bullied, by some family members. I won't get into that another time. Also because I was tired of being bullied by non-family members. Because, like I said, for one time I've been living in the South, and I had to deal with some racism, not just from white people, but just from black folks. And this ain't the shit on black folks. If you watch my other video from the past, you understand what I'm talking about. It's not shitting on them. It's just that there were cultural differences, especially back then, that, they've kind of worked themselves out a lot now, but it was different. And we're also going into a different time. I'm not saying hate black people, and I'm not saying black people start looking at each other like enemies. No. It ain't even like that. And I'm not saying look at every white person as an enemy. No, it ain't even like that. It's just saying be mindful, be more observant, and be aware of what can happen. If you have those things in mind, you can think about ways to better protect yourself and move in the environments that you're in to not only to keep your life and move forward. Because, like I said, I honestly believe this summer is going to be hot. I believe this summer is going to be kind of violent. And if not this one, every summer after this until Trump is gone and we are past this part of American culture and history of, fascism, however long that takes. Because I honestly believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because most things do get worse before they get better. But yeah. Segregation could be something very good for us, but it will take a unity that we don't have right now and that we need to develop. That's my honest beliefs on it. Yes, in the past, when we were segregated, black folks did very well for themselves because we had to work amongst ourselves and we collaborated and we built. And we were so good at it, even though we weren't out there attacking anyone, we were out competing our white competitors who didn't like us out competing them. Hence Tulsa, Oklahoma, hence Redwood and all those other black towns and black Wall Streets that these people came and burned down. So when these people out here that I see talking about, oh yeah, we're gonna be good in the food and the restaurants and all that shit, I was like, be mindful. We start doing real good, they gonna come for that. And I'll say it again. I'm probably gonna say this a lot. I'm sorry about that. I'm looking at my lip, it's dry. My car AC is on. Sorry about that. But what you can protect, you can build upon. When we get to a place in the black community, and I mean all black folks, if we can, I say when and if, because at the end of the day, everybody ain't gonna get on. That's just the truth. And it's really gonna be on them to do that or not. And how we as a people conduct ourselves amongst each other is ultimately going to determine how successful we are at rallying all of our people to that cause, right? How we navigate our differences amongst ourselves, how we, because, there's a black bourgeoisie and then the regular kind, and, the different elements and cultures, because everywhere in America, the black culture is a little bit different, and people think a little bit different. And then, let's be honest, there's some parts of our cities and everybody ain't getting along. So a lot of that kind of things, those kinks have to work themselves out. We got to be able to work them out. And if we can do that and get to a cohesive unit, we'll be better able to protect ourselves if and when the enemy comes, like I'm expecting them to come eventually. Because it seems like right now they're working very hard to demoralize us, put us into a state of shock and a catatonic state where we don't want to act. Hence, you see a lot of people online talking about don't get into the streets and protest because it's a trap. I do kind of agree that that can be possibly a trap. But that's only half the story. If that's a trap, then there needs to be an alternate way that I don't hear any people talking about. And yeah, we're talking about moving money and shit like that, but that ain't organized enough or at a level where it has been effective enough for us for them. I would say if we're going to do things financially better, it's not stop spending money with them, but start spending money more amongst ourselves. Now, how we get that to happen, I'm not the expert on that. There are people way better educated and knowledgeable on that, and I'm going to do my best to educate myself to hopefully better come up with solutions to that and present them where and when I can. But that's my take on that. And just be mindful of this summer, man. You know, I want to put this out there now because I feel like, bro, it's coming. And I think we have been, as much as it's been rough, and not and for black folks, but for a lot of people here, for the most part, we haven't experienced things like what people in Palestine or Gaza have experienced in a very long time. You know? At least not most of the United States as far as black people are concerned. There are places still, and I would say like parts of Chicago, Detroit, and Philly, and other places like that, where there are these very large black communities that are very much under the thumb of white supremacy in a systemic way, and they're doing everything they can to keep them people down. And they experience a level of it, but it's still not militias in the streets. It's still not martial law with supremacist law enforcement, militarized law enforcement moving in and trying to dictate things. And that was why I was talking about Israel, because law enforcement ever since 9/11 in the United States has been collabing with Israeli law enforcement and military to learn their tactics of how they do their things and work and conduct things, and they're bringing those systems back here and using them in our streets. This is not a conspiracy. This is not hearsay. This is fact. If you don't believe me, look it up. I know I'm not going to be like one of those other YouTubers where like I'm posting a bunch of other shit, clippets and snippets and all that shit. Maybe eventually I will for other things, other presentations, but I'm still too new in this to be doing all that. It's okay if you don't believe me. That's why I said look it up. And if you disagree, hey, put it in the comments. I may engage, I may not. It depends on how you come at me. If it's respectful and we good, then I may engage. Because I could be wrong on certain things. I know on that I'm not, because I've looked it up and researched it myself. But I'll say this. There's things I can be wrong about, and I'm not afraid of being wrong. If I'm wrong and you can show me where I'm wrong, hey, I get it. And you're right. And I also am the type of person that understands that two things can be true. And more often than not, and what we're experiencing right now, there's truths coming around on both sides of this. And what's happening is they're using truths to push narratives of lies. So being aware of what the truths are will better allow you to see how they're using truths to manipulate you into doing dumb shit and manipulating other people into doing dumb shit and thinking dumb shit and crazy stuff like that, for lack of a better term. But I'm still open to being educated, and I still want to be educated on this stuff. So just keep that in mind. What else am I talking about? Oh yeah. So on that note of education, I'm already looking into books and organizations and websites. But if there's things out there that y'all may know or suggest that I can read, or that may be local in Florida, Central Florida area, North Florida area, that are groups that I can engage with or talk to or online or whatever, where I can possibly engage with folks of like-minded who want to start thinking of ways that we can protect ourselves better, not just in a physical sense but in a political sense, and getting that word out there, because it's going to take grassroots effort to do that. I would like y'all to enlighten me. Throw that in the comments. You know, if there's books that I should be reading, let me know. Throw them in the comments. If there's organizations I should look into, let me know. Throw them in the comments, and I can go look at that and educate. Why not? I'd rather learn, and the more you know, especially in this day and age, the more information you have, the better you are equipped to defend yourself and understand what is to come and what these people are talking about and what they're doing. Because as much as they are appearing, and in many ways that they are incompetent, in other ways they're diabolically intelligent, right? And the reason I think this is because the reason they're incompetent in many areas is because they have been so diabolically intelligent and successful in others, their arrogance leads them to make mistakes and slips. But so far as I can tell, where they have mistakes and slips that expose what they're doing, it hasn't been effective at slowing down or stopping their agenda. So it makes you wonder, are they really stupid? Maybe not. They're just arrogant. And possibly rightfully so, because ain't nobody really doing shit. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party is not, in my opinion, doing enough. Do I think everyone in the Democratic Party is not doing their absolute best? No. Again, I'll always go to Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Bernie Sanders, and there's a couple others that right now I can't remember my name. I always remember those three because honestly those are the ones I see the most. But I know there are others, they're just not in the spotlight as much. But it is clear it is not the vast majority of Democrats. And it is clear that for the vast majority of Democrats, they've already pretty much given up without saying that they've given up. Because clearly the other side is not playing by the rules, and the Democrats don't know how to deal with that. And it's kind of like, y'all got to learn how to take y'all gloves off when y'all got to take y'all gloves off and just get shit done and handle business. But I am not well versed in all things politics. I am not in the White House. So I rest my case there. It's just my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's hard fact. Whatever. Just my opinion. But beyond that, again, I want to educate myself. I'm already looking into things, but anything y'all can recommend. And again, just instead of reacting so much about things, take a little time to think about it, its ramifications, digest a little bit, and formulate an idea of things so that you have a better understanding. What I've seen is a lot of reactionary shit and not a lot of people thinking about digesting this and what it really means and how we move forward. And that's what we need right now. Ideas on how to properly move forward, how to properly defend ourselves, not just black people as minorities. And I would say this, honestly, any person who is not for the agenda of MAGA and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the craziness that's going on there, and actually believes in a world where people are treated truly for, who they are as individuals, not because of, their skin color or all that other shit. Because it's dumb, but it's so ingrained in us for so long that we gotta break free from it. We gotta get past this somehow. I don't know how. My idea of how is through education, but they're clearly doing their best to eradicate that. And when people are like, "We're still gonna be good because you can get on the internet," I was like, "You forget." When they regulated the internet a couple years back, this was like 10 years ago. I forget the guy's name who had the FCCC. The internet ain't what it used to be. And if you think if they go full on fascism that they're not going to control the internet to a level that they are, to a higher level than they're controlling it now, which means that you very well may not have access to all that information that you have access to now, you're deluding yourself. And I don't think people really understand that. I think people are just thinking like, all right, cool, we segregate, but we still have internet, we still look things up, we still get all this information, all that shit ain't going nowhere. And I was like, you're very wrong. I was like, because if you see how they do things in the Palestinians in them places, the access is different depending on where you live. I was like, China's already proven it. China controls the whole internet infrastructure of China, and they are vastly more populated and a larger country than America. and they run it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just get on any site you want to get on and look up any information you want to look up like you can right now in America. Even though it is regulated, you still have a level of freedom that other countries don't have to the access of information. If these people get their full way, guaranteed that access is going to be restricted, especially if you don't look like the people they want you to look like who have access to that information, right? So keep that in mind when you're out here rejoicing about segregation, because this ain't 1940s and 50s and 60s segregation. This is digital age segregation. This is segregation of information, segregation of access, segregation of finances, all of this shit. You know what I'm saying? And there's a million and one ways they can make this happen, and I feel like they're going to do their best to implement all of them. You know what I'm saying? I was like, the hard push for digital currency means you can dictate what people use what type of currency. We already seen that going on with the Sahel and France. It means you can dictate your access to information. China. It means we can dictate what course of life you have to go under in order to succeed. Korea and the Sky Colleges. Look that up. America's been paying attention to the world while funding all the bullshit to see how to better control its own people. And we're getting to a place where they have an authoritarian style leader who wants to be a king, a dictator, and he's doing everything he can to consolidate that power with his money and his wealth and his influence. And if you think things like that aren't coming down the pike and you think that they can't happen, you're deluding yourself. I'm sorry. It's happening in the rest of the world. I understand America has not happened, but the funny thing is, it kind of has been happening in America the whole fucking time, just differently. And we've just drank the Kool-Aid a little too hard on thinking that it can never happen here. But I'm like, nah, it definitely can. If it can happen anywhere, it can happen here. That's just a fact. We're still humans. Yeah, we may be Americans, but we're still humans. Ain't much of a difference besides some culture shit. At the end of the day, we still need the same things to live and survive, right? So stop deluding yourself. Pay attention, educate yourself, and be aware of what can happen, and be aware of your surroundings. Not to live in fear, not to live walking around intimidated and worried about who will come and get you, but to know that, hey, if I'm just a little bit more cognizant of what's going on around me and nonchalantly, you can better protect yourself. Because guess what? If you see some people acting up funny and you call it out to the right people, that could end it there. Or it could be like, hey, this situation ain't looking kind of right. I'm a dip and keep it moving. And probably should be your best answer. Or you could be like, hey, I don't know what's going on over there with y'all. Y'all kind of moving a little funny. And not just to be judging because they white or they don't look black or whatever, but just because, you know, whatever they're doing or their actions or their body language or things like that, if you're paying attention, it'll tell you a lot. And you can make decisions to be like, it may be better to go over here and hang out with my homies or take my ass to the house and mind my business than to be out over here chasing these hoes, because who knows can happen. And I'm talking to the brothers, especially the young ones, because that's what happens in the summertime. You know, y'all, I'm not like that now because I'm older and I'm way more relaxed, but I know back when I was younger in my 20s and 30s, bro, I was out there. I was running around, you know, Friday, Saturday night, I'm in the streets. But I wasn't worried about militias trying to come and get me because they saw me talking to a white girl or any girl, or because I was just black out there. And let me reiterate, I don't just talk to white girls. I just want to make that clear. The reason I brought that up is because a lot of brothers do. And a lot of brothers pride themselves, at least on the internet, which I think is kind of cringe, hella weird, about how much they love white women, and that's the only thing they date. It screams, I fetishize them. And that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother discussion for another day. And your fetishizing of white women could possibly lead you down a road of self-destruction or being outright destroyed or attacked by other people who don't like that. You know what I'm saying? Treat people equally, view people equally, and see beyond that shit. Pay attention to what they do and their body language. Don't just look at the color they skin and because they got a pretty face and throw everything out the fucking window, right? Which I know is hard for a lot of brothers. I would say it's hard for a lot of men in general. There are a lot of men out here that see a pretty face and they lose all their balance. And you know why I say that? Because when I was younger, I was one of them. It took time and hard lessons to understand that she may look good, but she ain't good for you, bruh. And that has nothing to do with the color of her skin. It just may be the character of that person. You know what I'm saying? Be advised. That's to the brothers. To the sisters out here. To the ladies out here. This kind of goes for y'all. I don't think sisters date white dudes the same way brothers will date white women. I know there are a lot of white sisters out there who will. I think it's more so on the lighter skin, the mixed ones that'll do it than the dark skinned ones, but that is a whole other conversation. All I'm saying is, just be careful. You know? And the reason I say that is with sisters, look, y'all are strong-willed and y'all are headstrong, and that has served you well in life. And it may still serve you well today. But there are people who are going to use that as an excuse to try to take your life. There are going to be people out there who are going to use that as an excuse to isolate you from others, to bring physical and financial harm to you. And I'm not saying to change your character and live in fear. I'm giving you the same message. Just be cognizant and be aware of who's around so that you know how to properly deal with that situation when it comes your way. That's it. I'm not telling you to change. I'm telling you be aware. That's all. And I hope y'all hear me. But that being said, this video is going up on over an hour. Again, I could talk all day about shit. I hope I didn't just ramble and say nothing. I hope that what I said made sense to some people and they understood and got it. And I feel like personally I need to work on my organization of my thoughts when I say these things. I feel like I'm being as most authentic because I don't write that shit down, but it probably will help me. So I'm going to do that because I know a lot of stuff kind of comes out all over the place. But to those who watch it and understand what I'm saying and appreciate it and like me talking how I talk, thank you. If you do, tell me. If you want me, if you feel I can do better, whatever. I'm looking to grow in this, and I'm looking to hear, and I will invite criticism and feedback because it may be good, it may be not, whatever. It is what it is. But I'm going to try to take that and apply it if it's going to help me be better at me making YouTube videos and get better at this. So, again, thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe. I love you. Be safe. Keep your head and your wits about you. If you got someone that you can love on them. If you got someone that you can tell you care about, you don't care about them, tell them that. Don't live in fear. But live in conscientiousness. Be aware of the elements that are at play, especially in your daily life. Just because you ain't seen it before don't mean you ain't never gonna see it. And just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it may never happen. It may not. But in a situation where the odds are raised, your awareness and your consideration for those threats possibly coming should be raised. They should match. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you survive. But beyond that, thank y'all. My lips are drying out because my AC on, drying the shit out of my fucking lips. About to go ahead and get this sweat on. And y'all have a good day. I love y'all. Peace.